I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Jamie McIntyre. Jamie has had a number of interesting activities, and his career spans 4 decades. Includes radio, television, blogging, consulting, and after several years hiatus, he's back to covering the Pentagon and national security. This time as an Al Jazeera America correspondent, and again, focusing on the Pentagon and military affairs. You've probably heard him on All Things Considered, and he's going to talk to us today about some special experiences that he has had in the contagion of ideas. So I am very pleased to introduce Jamie McIntyre.
So I just flew in from Washington, D.C. just a few hours ago. So I'm still adjusting, Washington, of course, is known as a fact-free zone these days. In Washington, fact is dismissed as opinion, and opinion is passed along as fact. And I'm going to talk today a little bit about facts, and do facts matter, and the power of facts, and the limitations that facts have in shaping our storytelling. And I'm going to tell it through my own personal experience. Now, as I said, I just got here from Washington. And when I come to a new place, I like to get in tune with the local community, the local vibe. So the first thing I did when I got here was I quickly ran from the airport. I went and I had my vaccine removed. All right, that's the best joke I could think of on the plane coming over here. So as you heard, I have a long career in journalism, started in radio, and I had my own television show in Washington, and I covered the Pentagon for 16 years for CNN. At one point in my career, I was the voice of C-SPAN. So I used to say this: C-SPAN and our companion network, C-SPAN 2, are privately funded to serve the public by America. Yes, that's easy. I did that for a while. As you heard, I was on NPR doing newscasts at the bottom of the hour of All Things Considered. So I said, from NPR News in Washington, I'm Jamie McIntyre. That was a great job, but then Al Jazeera America lured me away to go back and cover the Pentagon because they wanted they have a mission to do fact-based reporting, and they convinced me that if I came back, I could do the kind of reporting that is hard to do on cable news these days. And so with that promise, I agreed to come back. And Al Jazeera America, by the way, is Al Jazeera America. It's an American network with American reporters doing American news for an American audience, the American way, and our headquarters is in New York City. And you can find it on your local cable channel. Give us a try. Anyway, but I'm not here to give a commercial for Al Jazeera. I want to talk a little bit about my personal experience, and I'm going to take you back to September 11th, 2001. And I know everybody has a story about where they were and what they saw and what they remember from 2001, September 11th. And my story was that I was at the Pentagon that day. And I won't bore you with everything that happened to me that day and take you through the day, but which involved all kinds of things, including getting arrested for taking a photograph of the Pentagon in violation of the Pentagon's ban on photography. But late in the day, that day I was reporting. I'd been up to the crash site at the side of the Pentagon. It was going to be later in the day. They had moved all the press across the street to a gas station that was across, if you're familiar with Washington, across Route 27, Washington Boulevard, just on the side opposite from where the plane hit the Pentagon. And I was recapping a story, and I uttered some fateful words as part of my extemporaneous report, and it became the jumping off point that led me on a search to try to figure out why people believe what they believe and whether or not you can change people's opinions with facts. And I'm just going to say, this is my, and by the way, so then I ended up, after this search, writing a master's thesis about this subject, which is here. It's called Elements of Disbelief, a case study of 9/11 truthers and the persistence of misinformation in the digital age. That's the name of my thesis, because thesis, as you probably know, they have to have a very academic and serious sounding title. If and when I ever turn this into a book, and I'm not sure that I will because it took me so long to write the thesis, but if I turn it into a book, it's going to be called Stuck on Stupid: Why Smart People Believe Dumb Things. Because that was the takeaway I learned from September 11th. Now, so we go to September 11th. I'm there, I'm reporting from the Pentagon, and to this day, and it's been, 13 years since September 11th. To this day, if you Google my name, and I'm just going to demonstrate this here, put my glasses on because I'm an old guy now. So if you go to Google and you type in Jamie McIntyre, oops, you got to spell it right here. This is not my computer. My keyboard's completely different. Okay, Jamie McIntyre. One of the first things that comes up is, well, you can see 9/11, good thing, Facebook. So Jamie McIntyre, 9/11. And one of the first clips that you'll find here, this reality check, is me from September 11. And
idea of how much of the plane actually impacted the building.
you know, it might have appeared that way, but from my close-up inspection, there's no evidence of a plane having crashed anywhere near the Pentagon. Okay, so those words that I said there, and I'll just play them again.
Actually impacted the building.
You know, it might have appeared that way, but from my close-up inspection, there's no evidence of a plane having crashed anywhere near the Pentagon. So from my close-up inspection, there's no evidence of a plane having crashed anywhere near the Pentagon. Those words became part of the big conspiracy theories about whether or not a plane actually hit the Pentagon. And believe it or not, and maybe you're a doubter yourself, there are still people to this day, and not just a few people, but a large number of people, millions of people, who do not believe the quote-unquote official government story that a plane hijacked by terrorists was flown into the Pentagon, killing 184 people, including the people on the plane and in the Pentagon, and as well as the 5 terrorists who were on the plane. There are people who don't believe that, and one of the reasons they don't believe that is because here is an eyewitness, a reporter for CNN, saying there's no evidence that a plane crashed anywhere near the Pentagon. Now, of course, you're smart, so you figured out that these words have been taken out of context, right? I was answering a question from our anchor on the air, Judy Woodruff, who now works for PBS, and I was explaining that I'd been up to the scene to see where the plane had crashed. I had examined the scene. I had seen pieces of the plane, thousands of pieces of the plane all over the Pentagon heliport. I'd seen larger pieces, but most of them were very small. And Judy had interrupted me. She said, "Well, Jamie, what about the report we had earlier that the plane crashed short of the runway nearby?" And I said, "Well, Judy, I can tell you from my close-up inspection, there's no sign of a plane crash anywhere near the Pentagon. The only crash site. The only site is the actual site of the building that's crashed in, and as I said, the only pieces left that you can see are small enough that you could pick up in your hand. There are no large tail sections, wing sections, a fuselage, nothing like that. So the part I said there's no big wing section, tail sections. So that was also used in part of the conspiracy theories, because here again is the reporter saying, "Hey, there's no big piece. Where's the plane? There's no plane. Here's a guy, he was there, he saw it, there was no plane." Around, which would indicate that the entire plane crashed into the side of the Pentagon and then caused the side to collapse. Now, even though if you look at the pictures of... Now, the other thing is, I would point out that I looked a lot younger then. And I also am not wearing a tie because I don't like ties, and I figured on that day I didn't have to wear one. So later in that day, and I'm not going to play all these clips for you because I'm not going to take up the full hour here. I'm just the warm-up act, by the way, for the really interesting, and I'm waiting to hear the rest of the presentation. But later in the day, I interviewed an eyewitness. I didn't actually see the plane hit the Pentagon, which is another part of the conspiracy theory. I didn't see the plane. How do I know it was really a plane? How do I know they didn't just bring the plane parts there and spread them out so that I could find them when I came rushing out of the building? After they blew it up with a bomb or a cruise missile. And speaking of cruise missiles, so I interviewed an eyewitness. I was looking for somebody who actually saw the plane hit the Pentagon. And I found a guy named Mike Walter, and he happened to be a television reporter for USA Today Television, which is not a big television outfit in Washington, but he worked in Roslyn, Virginia, which is just a short distance from the Pentagon. And he happened to be on that road, Route 27, when the plane actually hit. And the plane, if you know, it was American Airlines Flight 77, and it came in really, really low. It was just a few feet off the ground. It clipped some of the light poles as it was going in to hit the Pentagon. It was extremely low. So Mike was describing this. He said, "I'm in my car. I see the plane. I said, something is wrong. It's really low." He said it was an American Airlines plane. He said, "I saw it. It looked like a cruise missile with wings going into the side of the Pentagon." So of course, you know which part showed up on the internet. It looked like a cruise missile with wings going into the side of the Pentagon. So then we have a CNN reporter says no sign of a plane, Got an eyewitness says it looks like a cruise missile. The story's starting to cook here. We're really onto things. So if you go, by the way, if what I'm telling you, by the way, interests you at all and you decide you really want to know a little more detail about all of these things, I, of course, spent a lot of time detailing them in my thesis, which you can find online at elementsofdisbelief.blogspot.com. elementsofdisbelief.blogspot.com. And everything I'm talking about here is all, footnoted and annotated there. And the wording is exact. It's not just me, ad-libbing it. You can check all the facts on this. But so when this sort of conspiracy theory started bubbling up, I really didn't pay any attention to it. I mean, it just seemed to me it was nonsense, right? I mean, any right-thinking person, we know a plane took off from Dulles Airport. There were real people on the plane. They were killed. There was wreckage from the plane. There was DNA and remains that were recovered from the scene. I mean, it just seemed to me that nobody would believe this. But as months went by, I began to realize that people did believe it. And one of the sort of things that dawned on me was I got a call from a French reporter because a new book had been published in France that was called, in English, the English version was 9/11, The Big Lie. And it was the first book that sort of really put together all of these conspiracy theories and said that 9/11 was essentially an inside job. And it talked about things in New York as well, but I was focused on the Pentagon. And a reporter called me from a French news outlet to ask me what I thought of this book. And I walked him through the fact that my remarks have been taken out of context and that there really was no question that a plane hit. And as I'm talking to him, I realize that I'm not convincing him. He's not buying it. He's not buying it. And then a documentary came out, an internet documentary called Loose Change, which you can find on the internet to this day. It's been updated about 3 or 4 times. And you can, again, find the links to this on my webpage, on my page. If you go there, by the way, over to the side, all the chapters are here. This is a picture, by the way, of the actual plane hitting. This is an actual image that I obtained from the Pentagon. I was the first reporter to get this image from a security camera because I thought, one of the things that these conspiracy theories, one of the things they focus on is that there's no pictures of the plane hitting the Pentagon. In New York, you could see the plane hit the towers, but at the Pentagon, there was no video of it. So I was intent on finding video, and it turned out that a security camera at one of the entrances actually recorded the moment of impact. When they download the pictures, though, and then I tried to get them from the Pentagon, they wouldn't release them. They said they were going to be evidence in the upcoming trial of Zacarias Moussaoui, who was one of the 9/11 plotters. So they wouldn't release them. And I convinced someone at the Pentagon that it was in the public interest that people see this. And of course, this is how things work at your nation's Pentagon. A senior aide to Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld leaked me the pictures so that I could put them on CNN. And then a short time later, also gave them to the Associated Press. One of the things, though, that fuels this controversy, you'll notice that the date on this, timestamp on this says September 11th. And we never got an explanation for why it says September. We actually, September 12th, I'm sorry, the next day. We actually know that there wasn't another plane that hit the next day. The simple explanation is probably the time stamp was off on the security camera, but we never did get an explanation for that. But that's just another evidence that this is all made up. So jumping ahead here, because over the years, at first I didn't pay much attention. Then I began to sort of try to correct the record. I did some stories myself about what really happened. I examined some of the conspiracy theories. I did stories explaining that my comments were being taken out of context. And by the way, I asked CNN at one point, can we get people to take these clips down? Because CNN owns the copyright to them. I don't own them. CNN owns them. And they just said, look, it's impossible. They're everywhere. There's just no way to stop it. So they're just still out there. And they became part of this. And as I engaged people, I thought, well, and this is really one of the key points, is like if you believe something is indisputably true, that all evidence points in one direction, and there's really no evidence and no credible alternate explanation, but somebody else believes something different, you tend to think, well, they may not have all the facts, they may not know all the facts, and that was the case with some of these internet documentaries. If you actually go look at them, if you don't know anything, you don't have any outside information to look at, they actually can seem quite convincing. I mean, I was at the Pentagon and I was watching Loose Change, and I was thinking, well, yeah, this guy might have a point here. Oh, wait a minute. So you tend to think, well, if you could just provide people with the facts, they would say, oh, right. Oh, you were taken out of context. That's not what you were saying. Oh, okay, now I get it. And so over the years, I would engage with some of the 9/11 truthers, as they called themselves. And an interesting phenomenon occurred, which is that I was never able to change anyone's mind. Never once in all of the discussions I had. And I did. And if you read my thesis, I detail how some of the things I did to try to engage people, including talking to people at length. And one of the takeaways I took was, you might also tend to think, well, okay, these people are just not smart enough to handle they can't handle the truth. They can't weigh the evidence. But what I found was mostly people were really smart. They were smart people. They weren't dumb people. In fact, some of them knew a lot about aerodynamics, and they were good debaters and good arguers. They just were not going to buy what I was telling them, no matter how many facts I had to marshal in my defense. And it set me on this odyssey to try to figure out why do people have beliefs that are essentially impervious to facts? And as a journalist, because it's my job to bring facts to bear on a story, to help people understand things, what can I do to get through that? And there's been a lot of research done on it, and I'm going to boil it down to a couple of key points here, because I'm running toward the end of my time, and maybe we can talk some more about it in the Q&A. Couple of points. One of them was really convincing arguments can be made for things that are not true. And really, the evidence of that is just think about a court case where there's a person is accused of murder. They've got a prosecutor makes the argument that the guy did it. Defense attorney makes an equally convincing argument that they didn't do it. One of them is wrong. One of them has made a real convincing argument for something that's not true. And that's a lot of what you find with these conspiracy theories, convincing arguments for things that are not true. The other thing that we found is that we have a real emotional attachment to our beliefs. And there's a lot of research on this, and if you go to my blog, you can click on and see some of the original research on this. But what they believe is wrapped up a lot of times in who they are, sometimes in their religious beliefs, sometimes in their political beliefs, sometimes in just their in the beliefs in who they are as a person. Did anybody hear NPR this morning? Morning Edition did a piece on mothers who had not vaccinated their kids. So they did two pieces. One was sort of on this subject, and the other one was they interviewed a mother who had not vaccinated her children, and the explanation she gave was she considered herself a, quote, crunchy mother, which I hadn't heard this before, but it's somebody who's natural, and they're breastfeeding and sleeping with their child, and they're doing everything in a natural way, and she didn't consider vaccines to be natural, and it just sort of went against who she thought she was as a person. And a lot of what we believe because we have ourselves wrapped up in it. And there's a lot of research to this, which means that sometimes no matter how many facts you give somebody, they don't want to change their mind. And it's really relevant now with this whole debate about vaccine and vaccine safety. And what does the science say? And as a reporter, a lot of times you're asking yourself, what does the science say? And science doesn't always have the answer. In fact, uncertainty is a part of science. But part of the solution to this is to develop more critical thinking skills and not make some of the critical thinking errors that we make. And again, in my paper, I go through some of these common errors. And of course, the mother of all critical thinking errors, the one that we all engage in, the one that I probably engaged in when I was doing my paper, is confirmation bias, where we seek out information that already confirms what we would believe, and we discount information that goes against it. And certainly when I was doing my paper, I was looking for stuff that confirmed my belief that a plane hit the Pentagon. And some of the people I talked to criticized me for not seeking enough disconfirming information that a plane didn't hit the Pentagon. But my response to them was, sometimes there are not two sides to a story. Once there's enough evidence to tell you that the Earth is round, you really don't need to start looking for more evidence that the Earth is flat. And so I'll sort of leave you with that. A couple of just quick quotes that I came across that I really liked when I was doing the story. One, of course, is attributed to Daniel Patrick Moynihan, although I can't find the evidence he actually said it, which is that everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but not their own facts. Stephen Colbert is quoted as saying, I don't like facts. Facts can change. I like my opinion. My opinion never changes. And Mark Twain is attributed to have said, it's not what you know, that gets you in trouble. It's not what you don't know that gets you in trouble. It's what you do know that ain't so. And we know a lot of things that aren't so. I encourage you to sort of, if you're intrigued by what I said at all, and you'd actually like to get some facts, some hard facts to go with it, I would encourage you to go to read my thesis. I spent a long time writing it. It got me my master's degree at the University of Maryland, and the website again is elementsofdisbelief.blogspot.com.